This is the Real Change Wilmington podcast, episode 32, Inside Clinton County Job and Family Services, with our guests today, Nicole Rodman and Amanda Randolph.
Just being able to see those moments when you've impacted someone's life. I mean, when you get into this field, you're not doing it because you're going to be rolling in the big bucks. Truly, you're not in social services, but you do it because you want to have an impact on people. And we do that every single day. And that is why I have stayed and continued my career with Job and Family Services.
What is going on, everyone? This is your host of the Real Change Wilmington podcast, Dustin Pierce.
And I'm Emily Griffith, the co-host.
And on our podcast, we interview leaders of local organizations to help squash rumors and foster a greater sense of pride and community in Wilmington. And if you haven't tuned into Real Change before, we are a positive, constructive, and lighthearted source of local news, events, and resources. On our podcast today, we are going to dig into the Clinton County Job and Family Services building, which is out on South 68 there. I pass that building all the time. They have a huge parking lot that's mostly empty, but we got to dig into their 4 service units and learn more about the people involved with that. So that was a mouthful. Emily's just shaking her head.
It's okay. I'm just thinking about the mostly empty parking lot. I think it just suffers from the classic Ohio dead strip mall thing.
Yeah.
They're like right on the end, and then Solutions is right on the end, and then there's like a dollar store and a Subway in between.
Yeah, I talked to Nicole before the podcast, and she mentioned that they don't own the building. The county does, I guess, because they can't legally own property. So it's like not their thing, the parking lot situation. So maybe the commissioners, could put a Chick-fil-A out front or something cool like that. I'm pushing it. It's never going to happen, but
if it did, it'd be a good day.
It'd be a good day. Before we get into the podcast, we had a pretty eventful weekend. It was Holidazzle.
That is true. It was Holidazzle and Christmas ornament making.
Yes, and I made Emily monitor all of this at the office while I got to hang out with my family. Also, Emily told me this morning that she got to see a new movie that I'm super jealous about.
Yeah, I saw the new Trolls movie. I babysit the little girls that live across the street like every other weekend, and I could not think of anything to do this weekend. And I had mentioned going to movies, and the girls were like, "Oh my gosh, can we see Trolls?" And I was like, "I've never seen them all." But boy, let me tell you, I laughed so hard. There's a lot of adult humor in it.
Yeah.
And great music. So
I really want to see it. Without further ado, let's just let Nicole and Amanda speak about the Job and Family Services units. Amanda and Nicole, welcome to the Real Change Wilmington podcast. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
So you guys gave me a tour yesterday of your facility. So I'm basically an expert now, but I'm going to pretend to be dumb for everyone's sake. I'm a really good actor, so it's going to be very believable. But you guys do a lot of things under the Job and Family Services umbrella.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's 4 distinct different categories. So we will get into those things. But first, let's hear about you guys. Where are you from? And tell us your story about how you got to your position.
Okay. So this is Nicole. I'm actually from Wilmington, Ohio. Grew up here, graduated from Wilmington High School. I left and completed my degree at Miami University here in Ohio. When I graduated from Miami University, I actually started as a contract worker for the county. At that time, it was for CC Works. Most people know that as OhioMeansJobs, but it was our workforce development center, and I oversaw the youth programs. And then I started my career in 2010, actually as a county employee with the child support unit. And then I transferred into deputy director for just a short period of time. My predecessor retired, and then I took over for her. So I've been the director at JFS. It was 3 years in August of 2023. Altogether, I've been with the agency for about 17 years.
So are you top dog at JFS?
I guess you could consider me
all right.
JFS, yes.
So you're the whole thing. You're the whole
I
thing.
oversee all 4 agencies.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. And Amanda, what's your story?
Hi. So I'm Amanda Randolph, and I live in Highland County, but have worked in Clinton County since 2004. I graduated from Wilmington College in 2003, did some time with the probation department in Highland County, did some internships, and then just found my way to Clinton County when there was an ongoing caseworker position posted, and here I am. So I started as an ongoing caseworker, did that for 10 years, became a supervisor. And then in 2018, I went to Highland County Children's Services for a few years, did the same thing, supervision and administration. and then came back in 2021 when there was a deputy director position available in Clinton. So I'm back.
So you're over the child protection division? Is that right?
I oversee, as well as Nicole, all 4 agencies.
Okay.
But my primary focus is with children's services and child protection. Yes.
Okay. So I want to just also start by asking, like, why are you passionate about what you do? Like, why do you do this job as opposed to another job? And I'm assuming you bring like a standard of excellence to this position. So like, why do you do that for?
Well, I hope that I bring a standard of excellence to the position. So I have my degree in family studies. So social work has always interested me. We've done lots of conversations about our why. And I think for me, I want to be the person that empowers people to succeed, not just people that are receiving public assistance or utilizing our services, but the staff that we oversee as well. We're a really unique, I think, family when it comes to JFS, and everybody that works there knows the role that they have, and supporting children and families in the community makes my job super easy. I have phenomenal employees, phenomenal management team, and just being able to see those moments when you've impacted someone's life. You know, when you get into this field, you're not doing it because you're going to be rolling in the big bucks. Truly, you're not in social services, but you do it because you want to have an impact on people. And we do that every single day. And that is why I have stayed and continued my career with Child and Family Services.
That's awesome. Our motto at Real Change Wilmington is that we are a community of empowered individuals. So I love when you said that.
Yeah.
What does empower means to you? Like, what does that look like? How do you empower people?
Giving people the tools and the resources to better themselves, to be self-sufficient and to be contributing members to our community in a positive way.
And you do that to your own team as well?
Absolutely.
That's
every
awesome.
day. 100%. We can't do the job that we do if we don't have the team that's sitting behind us. So all the credit will always go to them.
Nice. Amanda, how are you going to top that? Why?
Well, no, sure I can. Well, when I was in college, I wanted to save the world. That was my goal in my early 20s. And, I don't think I'm going to save the world at this point, but I do feel like, I just really enjoy helping people, and I love helping them see the best in themselves and in other people, and helping them change to make good decisions. And you see that progress, and you just see them better themselves. And it's really just a great feeling to be part of that. And again, the empowering, we went to a leadership conference, and it was funny that she and I had the exact same why. It's to empower others to succeed. And,
which is not a joke at all.
We
did some independent work, and we came back together, and the word we kept sitting with was empower. Yeah.
Nice.
And it's giving people those tools to be self-sufficient, to make it on their own, to go along and empower somebody else to do the things that they need to do to be successful.
Do you have like a certain story of helping someone that's like stood out to you that's been impactful?
Oh, I feel like I have several. And I would say, when I did frontline casework, that would be probably the most significant stories that I would have. And, I think of one, she's kind of my shining star, but it was a really nasty sexual abuse case. And she was in foster care for several years. A lot of not great details in between that I won't share, but she ended up being able to be adopted at the age of 16 by a family who just really helped her thrive. And she made good grades, graduated high school, was involved in all the extracurriculars, and has gone on to college, graduated from college. And I've kept in touch with her. And she was very difficult to work with for quite some time. So just seeing your efforts and seeing their efforts and the good things that can come from really bad situations. A lot of times people will say, children's services, oh, that's got to be awful. And it really isn't. There's a lot of good stories that come from it. And that's what I think motivates staff to do better and to keep doing the job that they do. Because like Nicole said, it's not for the paycheck. Because you really enjoy helping people. Yeah.
Nice. We're going to let Emily come sit down. Emily, their motto is empowering people.
Sounds like somebody's all that.
Yeah, we're gonna give them a lawsuit later on.
No, I'm saying you a lawsuit.
Oh, there's gonna be a lawsuit. We were going to sue Pat Haley for using It's Time to Change on his because obviously we're the only ones that can change in this state.
That's awesome.
Okay. Just kidding.
I'm going to leave on one.
Yeah, hi,
Hi,
Natalie.
nice to meet you.
Yeah, she organized the meeting. Yeah, Amanda Nicole.
We've been following you guys, and we thought we need to get over there and talk with them and kind of let them know what we're doing.
All right, so let's get into the actual work of Jobs and Family Services.
Okay.
So yesterday on the tour, you told me that it wasn't always under one roof, that some counties in our state are not under one roof.
Correct.
So can you kind of tell us a little bit about the history of that? Not the all details, but like how that became one thing and how it is. Okay.
So 2001, prior to 2001, all of the services that we provide here were in standalone agencies. So they were situated in different parts of the county or the community, always in Wilmington. And in 2001, a decision was made to bring all of those services under one roof. I can't tell you exactly why that decision was made. For many counties, sometimes it's a financial stability situation, bringing your counterparts together and how you process and provide your services because, 9 times out of 10, if one person's being served over here, they're being served over here. So it put us under one roof. So 2001, we combined out at the building that we're at now. And that's really kind of the transition. I didn't start with the agency until 2007. So they had been well established before I came into the situation. But we're a state-run, county-administered program. So at the federal level, not to get too in the weeds here, so we have funding and rules that come from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Health and Human Services, and the Department of Labor. And then you go down one next level, and we've got 3 departments that we answer to at the state. So you have the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services, you have the Ohio Department of Medicaid, and then with this new biennium, Governor DeWine created the Department of Children and Youth. So 3 different entities that we answer to. So they interpret the rules, create the rules, processes and procedures, and then we administer those programs here at the local level. So there's only a handful of states in the country that still do it that way. Several states, their programs are state run and state administered. So we get a little bit of say-so in how we administer our programs. We know our communities the best. So we know what services are needed and how to best help people who are here in their own backyard. So several layers of how you get down to us here at the local level.
It sounds like our state is wanting to empower our local counties to make decisions.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw up.
Sometimes they
You'll
want
have to put like an empower counter.
Yeah.
Every time I say empower, you take a drink.
Yeah. So we answer to a lot of people.
Why do you, at the federal level, will you answer to the ag?
So the U.S. Department of Agriculture would be like your food assistance programs.
Oh, okay.
So like your SNAP, your Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program is going to be housed under that department. Your Health and Human Services are going to be all the other social service programs in the Department of Labor because we also have workforce development here.
Okay.
So you're looking at over 100 programs that we facilitate with around 50 different funding streams that we have to manage.
And those 100 programs are divided between your 4 different verticals or whatever you call them. What do you call them? Divisions?
Units.
Units?
Yep.
Okay. So you have Jobs and Family Services, the whole thing.
Yes.
And then you have a Family Services section.
Yes. So Family Services would be like our public assistance. So that would be your TANF or your Ohio Works First. So your cash benefit.
What's TANF?
So TANF is temporary assistance to needy families.
Okay.
So that's kind of at the federal level. And then in the Ohio level, it's Ohio Works First. So if you meet eligibility requirements, everything in your public assistance world has an eligibility piece to it. You have to be eligible to receive the service. A lot of it is based around your income and your household size. So you have TANF, which would be like a cash grant. So if you meet whatever the percentage of the poverty level is for the program, you're entitled to receive that service. And it's a cash grant that you receive every month.
Is that Medicaid or SSI or different completely?
TANF, totally separate pot of money. Medicaid is its own program operated under a different agency. You also have SNAP, which we talked about, which is your food assistance. Then under Family Services, there's the Medicaid piece. They also do the publicly funded childcare. We talked about that a little bit yesterday. We assess eligibility to help families pay for childcare. And we also license homes in our community to provide childcare. So that's in there. And then We have the PRC plan, which is prevention, retention, and contingency. That's kind of an offshoot of the TANF program, but we're able to provide other types of services under PRC. Like if you need help with your electricity, if you need some work supports, if you need transportation assistance to get you to and from work while you're getting to a place where you're kind of a little more self-sufficient, those types of programs can be facilitated through that program. And then the last one we facilitate is non-emergency transportation. So if you are receiving a Medicaid, you're eligible to receive transportation to all of your medical appointments, eye doctors, dentists. If you're in substance abuse treatment, we can provide those services to you under the Medicaid umbrella. I will tell you that some of the misconceptions about public assistance are that nobody works, and that is not true. The majority of public assistance recipients are working. And if they are not working and they don't meet some sort of an exemption, they're disabled, they have young children, they're required to participate in programs to get them ready to go into the workforce. Looking at public assistance overall, 75% of those participants are either children, seniors, or the disabled. And just to kind of throw some numbers out at you, because we're going to fill you with a whole bunch of information today. In 2022, just in that lobby alone, we served about 9,200 clients coming through for the year and processed around 32 applications for services. That's in addition to all the ongoing applications that are being processed as well. We serve 1 in 4 people in Clinton County through public services.
Is that more than other counties?
I think it's probably pretty standard.
Okay.
Yeah. Majority of people, when I talk about that number, are Medicaid recipients. I pulled some other stats. Cash, for example, we don't have a lot of adults in our community that are sitting around just obtaining a cash benefit. We averaged last year 1 adult at any point in time receiving a cash benefit. Everybody else that's receiving it is children, and they're children that are in kinship placements or are placed in the legal custody of a family or a friend that need that additional support to be able to maintain care for that child. For SNAP, last year we had 3,300 adults that were receiving benefits and a little over 2,000 children that were receiving benefits. So we have a process in place for how we assess people, how we can best meet their needs, and what supports do we need to do to hopefully at some point transition them off of public assistance.
So you mentioned that you serve the disabled community as well. If somebody comes in and they can't read and they can't write, do you offer support for them? That's
we
awesome.
Provide any type of a service, whether it's a language barrier, a literacy barrier, someone's going to be available, or we're going to contract with someone to be able to provide those services. Our OhioMeansJobs has phenomenal ADA supports for those that have visually impaired. You're blind, we can do Braille for you. So lots of supports to make sure that those that are in that position are receiving the same level of service that any other person would receive if they came in our agency.
That's good.
So if someone needs SNAP in our community, they're coming to you. That's who manages SNAP.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Is food stamps an outdated term?
It is.
Okay.
Yep. Food assistance might be a little bit better, and it really is a supplemental program. The intention is not for it to take the place of everything that you would contribute to your food. But I think we kind of know or see with the economy the way that it is, with food at the cost that it is, sometimes that is what's supporting families. It's not necessarily just a supplement for some of the families in our community, but it's intended to be a supplement, just a portion of what you would contribute to your household to provide food services and food assistance.
Medicare? Is that next?
Yes. Okay. So Medicaid,
sorry.
no, we do some things for Medicare as well, but Medicaid, it serves children, families, and adults aged blind and disabled. There are 14 categories of Medicaid eligibility. So anytime we can make somebody eligible, we try to do that. We run them through all 14 criteria to, if at all possible, make them eligible to receive the service. When you receive Medicaid, you select a managed care provider. So it's just kind of like a private health insurance. So yeah, it's state facilitated, state run, but you have the option to choose who you want to be your provider. And then we also can help with Medicare premium assistance. So if you are limited income and assets and you need help with paying like deductibles, co-pays, and things like that for Medicare, you could be eligible for us to support that cost as well. And then we dabble in some long-term care. So we also help with some community-based services. One of those would be, so let's say that you really are at a nursing home level of care. We can provide some other services to kind of keep you in your home. we can pay for some of those services so you have those available to you. The other thing that's kind of new under Medicaid is Ohio Rise. That's Medicaid's program. It stands for Resiliency Through Integrated Systems of Excellence. Did I say that right? Its primary focus is with kids on major behavioral needs. So they have lots of different other wraparound services to assist those kinds of kids above and beyond what's just available under Medicaid program.
What is Medicaid/Medicare?
It's your public health insurance.
Public health insurance?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So it's state health insurance.
And is it on your list because you manage that for our county? Or?
We determine eligibility.
Okay.
So somebody comes in, they complete an application, we review the eligibility criteria, we determine if they're eligible or not eligible, and then they're provided information to work with Medicaid to pick their managed care provider, those types of things. We just determine the eligibility piece. We do not keep health records at our agency. We don't do any of, doctor scheduling or any of that. It is strictly just the eligibility piece when it comes to us. And last year we had over 12,000 people in the community that were receiving Medicaid.
That's a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't 12,000 the population of Wilmington? About?
Closely. So you're looking at about 1 in 4.
Yikes.
1 in 4 people.
Okay.
Yep. And Medicaid, the laws have changed and you have a bigger percentage of the poverty level that are now eligible that maybe weren't eligible before Medicaid expanded. Sometimes you have 2 people in the family that are eligible and 3 other people in the family that are not. There's a whole process. Sometimes I wonder how those caseworkers remember all of the different ways that you determine eligibility, because what you determine for SNAP looks very different in Medicaid. So they have all this information that they have to know when they're determining your eligibility. Lots of charts. Yeah. Yeah. And cumbersome systems that can be tedious at times.
And then do you want to talk about the prevention, retention, and
Sure.
contingency?
Yeah, absolutely. So all 88 counties are required to have a PRC plan. So they may look a little bit different from county to county. You have some structure and some guidelines, and it's under the TANF program, but you can pick and serve your community with the types of services and needs that best fit them. So you do have to be at 200% of the poverty level, and we do a 30-day look back at your income to determine that eligibility. So this program is to try to prevent people from having to go on cash assistance by meeting some of those short-term needs. Maybe they haven't been able to meet rent and they're going to be evicted, or maybe they're behind on their electric bill. Those types of short-term supports that we can get in there, make a solution and kind of divert them from actually having to go on any type of cash benefit. We also provide work supports. So we have bonuses for people who get and maintain employment. So if you maintain a full-time position, you can apply and receive a cash bonus for maintaining that employment. We do rent and mortgage assistance, utilities, gas cards and gas vouchers. We talked about the new employment and employment retention bonuses. And then we also have kinship supports. So if you're somebody who's willing to take on children that are not your own, whether it be a grandparent, we have great grandparents that have kids that they're raising, a family friend, an aunt. We also provide stabilization services so that if they're willing to take those kids on into their home, maybe we can get their short-term needs met, like maybe they need clothing, maybe they need toiletry items, those types of things, so that those children are stable within their household and we're preventing them from coming into care. That all of those services that we kind of talked about all go through the same application process on the family services in the family services unit.
So are people that qualify for the PRC, the prevention, retention, and contingency, are they they're not as bad off yet as the other people, as people who need the SNAP and need the Medicare? They're just on the line there and you're trying to not help them go under that line or something?
So it could be that situation. There are a lot of people who apply for the PRC program that are receiving some other benefits, whether that be SNAP or Medicaid.
Okay.
This is more to prevent and support people. So to prevent kids from coming into care and to support people with maintaining employment. So if there are short-term solutions that we can meet, like, hey, maybe I need to pay my rent, but my electric's behind. Well, let us pay your electric, and then you can take the money you were going to pay your electric with and go pay your rent, so that we're kind of fixing those short-term crisis situations that people are in. And they could be people that already receive benefits that have just hit another bump in the road.
Okay. And then was there one more piece of the emergency assistance, or is that part of it?
That's part of it. So we talked a little bit about publicly funded childcare would be another piece. Last year, we had 113 kiddos that were receiving support through publicly funded childcare. And we've got 5 licensed homes in the county that can provide that care for children. I would say that's probably something that is a goal on our future list, to look at other opportunities that we can get some more providers into our community, because that is a huge barrier for people who are trying to work. Mm-hmm. Childcare is extremely expensive. And if we can get some additional homes in, or however that may look in the future, we've been working with the Workforce Collaborative. We talked about that yesterday. And I think that's one of their priorities that they're working on. And we're going to lend our childcare worker to that process to hopefully get some ideas and some actual tangible plans in place to facilitate that. And then we talked, the last thing really in the family services unit was the non-emergency transportation. We are a pass-through agency for that. Medicaid pays for it. If you're receiving one of the approved Medicaid programs, you just give us a call. Hey, I have a medical appointment on this date. I don't have transportation. We will facilitate with one of our 3 vendors, which we contract with Wilmington Transit to provide those services. Ready Rides out of Hillsborough and 3C Cab out of Fayette County to provide those transportation trips for those individuals who don't have, maybe they have an appointment in Cincinnati with a specialist and they don't have a ride. We will provide that service so that they can get to their doctor's appointment and make sure they're tending to their health needs, and transportation isn't a barrier. That's the big picture for family services.
How do you make sure someone doesn't become dependent on these services, and they are empowered to then, I guess, maybe get off of them? Because I can see it.
So what is part of that is the work piece of it. So if you're receiving, SNAP benefits or cash benefits, there's typically a work component involved with it. So it may look like, hey, let's get you some soft skills. Let's work on a resume. Let's work on interviewing skills. Let's get you some clothes if you need to interview. And they're required to do so many hours of that type of, what do I call it? Preparation to enter the workforce. Cash assistance is time limited. So once you hit 36 months, you're no longer eligible to receive the cash benefit.
36 months of what?
Of cash benefit.
Oh, receiving it for 36 months and then you're done? Okay.
Yep. It's time limited. And the other piece of it is that if you're not participating in some of those programs that are intended to get you into the workforce and transition you off of public assistance, you may not be eligible to receive that assistance. The feds have set guidelines on who should and shouldn't be doing work for their benefits. We work closely with OhioMeansJobs. That is going to be our go-to point for when we have people that are working on getting ready to enter the workforce, or maybe they've been out and they just need some assistance in, applying, so on and so forth. They're kind of our go-to point for that process.
Is that a newer establishment to have all these things? Because there is a lot of stigma about people who are on public assistance.
No, absolutely.
That they don't work, but they don't try, that they don't do a lot of things.
So as long as I've been involved with these programs, it's always been a requirement that you participate. So for SNAP, we call it the SNAP Employment and Training Program. So it works on job readiness, job searching, education and training. So maybe we need to do some skills upgrades. Maybe you have some skills from prior employment and maybe you were laid off somewhere and we need to upgrade some of those skills to make you marketable into another type of job situation. And we also have a work experience program. So we actually work with some community spots here in town, and we will put people at a work experience so that they're gaining actual real-time work knowledge. So we have contracts with Goodwill, so we can send somebody out there to work. I don't remember off the top of my head all of the places that we contract with, but we do try to give opportunities to get real work experience. So then hopefully they can transition into work.
I went to the Clinton County Coalition for Homelessness last week.
Yeah.
And there was a gentleman from a veterans group in town.
Yes.
That talked about how they have cash assistance for veterans, but each veteran has a $10,000 cap, a lifetime cap. So once they meet that, they can't help them anymore.
There is not a cap for food assistance.
Okay.
So as long as you meet the eligibility requirements, so as long as your income and your household size and all the other different parts and pieces of the eligibility process are met, you are eligible to receive that benefit.
Is there caps for other programs besides SNAP?
Just for TNF, you've got the 36-month time limit. Medicaid's the same way. As long as you're meeting the eligibility requirements, whatever that should be as far as your income versus your household size, you are entitled. They're entitlement programs. You're entitled to receive that benefit.
Okay. I guess my question was, wouldn't there be a fear that there'd be too many people who need that and then you run out of money or something?
Absolutely. Those programs are funded from at the federal level. So it's not like we're given a pot of money for food assistance and as soon as we run out, we're done. Last year, we issued about $16 million in SNAP benefits to recipients in the community. Yeah. But that's not necessarily what's sitting in our budget. We do the eligibility piece. We do not do the issuance piece as far as pulling it from our pot of money that we have or from our budget.
Okay.
It's a pass through at the state and federal level.
But your mission is to help people,
Correct.
some people who can be helped off of this and
Correct.
to be empowered.
Yes. Yes. We do not want people to sit indefinitely on public assistance. And there are a lot of stigmas about what people are and aren't doing when they're receiving public assistance. And I can't sit here and tell you that, everyone's doing exactly what they should be to be self-sufficient, but the majority of people are. They just hit some tough situations, and it's not intended to be a lifelong support, but it's there if you meet the eligibility process.
Wouldn't some of it be lifelong though, if there's like a reason you need it for like a disability? Yeah, something like that.
Yep.
Gotcha.
That would be a primary reason why you don't have the capacity to earn any more than
Or elderly maybe, or
elder. Yep.
Okay.
Fixed income.
Sure.
Do you think the stigma comes from the one person out of the hundreds of people that does abuse the system?
100%.
And like, that's what people see.
100%.
I was just thinking, I was a SNAP kid growing up. So and my parents worked their butts off to get off of the SNAP program. And I remember going to school and people being like, well, kids who have food stamps are poor and dirty. And I was like, well, that's not true.
No, they're not. And you sometimes you hear the word like benefit cliff. So
What does that mean?
So if you're let's say you're receiving public assistance and you start to do well and you get a good job and you start to get raises, as soon as you don't meet that threshold for eligibility, you're cut off from the assistance. So you don't have a transition period where you can transition yourself from maybe $400 of my food budget was tied up in SNAP assistance. Now I'm doing better and I'm earning more. And then that goes away and you're hopefully you edit this so it sounds a little bit better. So there's no transition period. As soon as you're not eligible, you're not eligible. We cut you off and you have to figure out how to manage it. So if you're somebody who $400 meant a lot to you and that's how you fed yourself and you're making only $100 extra a month at work, but now you're not eligible for the SNAP program, we're putting you right back in the same situation, the same cycle, because you just clip off. As soon as you are not eligible, you're done.
So how do people overcome that?
A lot of people will forgo bettering themselves because they can't afford not to. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Yeah.
That's a bummer.
I think that what comes into that is having strong programs that are getting people ready for work, that are getting them the skills that they need for work, that are providing them the training that they need to do work is where it matters. And I think my personal opinion, there's a lot more reform that needs to happen at the state level to make this possible. There's a lot more reform that needs to happen at the federal level so that people can transition appropriately off of benefits so that they can continue down their self-sufficiency path without feeling like they have to sacrifice one thing or over the other to survive.
Right. That's kind of dark. I don't know how I got there, but okay. So we discussed family services, I think. Is that?
Yes, that is family services. You have a whole program there.
I'm going to be tired. It's a lot. I know. Well, everybody, I guess it's time for our 40-minute nap break.
Yeah.
Heck no. So next we're going to get into the child piece, I assume, or you want to go to the work piece next? Well, your brochure says child next, so we're going to go to child.
Oh, okay. Good.
So the next two pieces are child protection and then also child support, which are two different units.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to discuss what those are?
So we'll start with child protection. because it's a little more complicated.
Yeah.
We'll get that out of the way. So in child protection, our main goal is to focus on safety, permanency, and well-being for our families and children. Our goal is to keep families together and give them the tools to support themselves and empower themselves. How to get that in there?
Yeah.
And if they can't, then making permanency plans for children, being adoption, placement with kinship. And in some cases, we have older youth who need independent living transitional skills. So there's different programs at the state level that we can refer to, and they can get assistance that way, or we can offer emancipated youth services as well for our older youth. So just to start, I guess I'll start with the misconception is that we do not want to take people's children. I know when we met yesterday, that was your first question is, oh, you don't just go in and take kids. No, that is like last resort. So we want to always try to prevent. So luckily that's been a big shift in child welfare practice is we now are looking way more into the future in terms of prevention. It's always been a very reactionary program. So you have a crisis, you respond. There's never any ability to get in front of the problem before it becomes a crisis. So there's a lot of services that I think the federal government, state government, that they're implementing down to the local level and are going to be able to hopefully put in place so we can be more helpful on the front end before it blows. So going through a children's services case, we get a call, someone's concerned about abuse or neglect, and they make a report. So we go from there and we decide, is this something that we have allegations that we need to look into, or is this something that we just need to document, or is this just information that we need to address in some other manner? Let's say it's a case that we open. You have an intake caseworker. So within our unit, we have units. So then there's the intake unit, which they're the first knock on the door if there's an allegation of abuse or neglect. So they will go to the door and introduce themselves and say, we received these concerns. And then they interview people. They talk to collateral people. So schools, probation officers, courts, neighbors.
Yeah.
So whoever it is that, that they feel like they need to get information from to gather all of that to make those good decisions to decide, is this child safe or are they unsafe? What do we need to do to wrap services around this family and keep the child safe at the same time? Sometimes, you go in and find allegations are not true. So then you can just close your case. And that's always best case scenario is that you can close your case successfully and you don't get another call. So when we get those calls, and let's say that there are found to be concerns of abuse or neglect, at that point, we can transfer cases to the ongoing unit, who then provide case planning services. So they get people set up with mental health. They get people set up with drug and alcohol services, referrals for housing, parenting classes, counseling services for kids, help me grow services, early intervention. And sometimes those case plans are court involved and sometimes they're not, just depending on the severity and level of cooperation that we get from families that we serve. Some people are very willing to work with us and we don't have to go that route, but then other people are not, or the allegations are so significant that we have to have court intervention. And just to go back to the reporting piece as well, reporter information is confidential. That's not something that we can ever give out. So if anyone calls in, you can call in anonymously even, but for the most, there's no reason that we could give out reporter information to a client. We could be court ordered to, but that's very rare. I'm not sure in my almost 20 years I've ever seen that be the case. So where a reporter's been court ordered to appear in court or subpoena, but it can happen. And every county's different. But we encourage people to make reports if they can, where we take calls 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. After hours, our calls do go through the sheriff's department, but then they transfer emergency calls to us or law enforcement deal with them directly. And then they decide, do we need to call children's services out as well? We work very closely with law enforcement, as well as probation, court systems, the other first responders that, go out on these cases as well. So then we have our ongoing unit with the case planning. And in some cases we have kids that can stay in the home, which is always best case scenario for everybody. We don't want to traumatize children or families, and that's our goal, is to be trauma focused and informed. So then hopefully you can maintain children in the home. But sometimes you can't. There are safety factors that are identified, and you need to keep children safe. And we can place children with families, which is next best thing, or they can go into foster care. And some children have behavioral needs that are so significant that they require going to like a residential facility that can meet their needs, and they have 24-hour care.
So you've talked about kinship and you've talked about kinship. What's the difference between adoption, foster care, and kinship? Just for people listening.
So foster care is hopefully temporary. That is when basically like if you come out of the home and you have nowhere else to go, foster care would be the next like least restrictive environment for you to go in. So we have family foster homes that we do our licensing ourselves. And then we have local foster homes. And then there are treatment foster homes that are licensed through private networks. So, and they're all over the state. So sometimes we are full with our local homes and we have to resort to that. And they also cost a lot more because they go through different trainings. They have different services in the home. So there's different levels of foster care even. But hopefully from foster care, they can go home or go with family and go somewhere where it's less restrictive and we don't have to go to adoption, which is then parental rights have been terminated. So the best description I can give to that would be like terminating parental rights is like the death sentence to a parent. Very dark, I know, but that's, equating to that. And then, once they go to adoption though, that's not always a bad thing. And that's where they're with their forever family. So, in quotes, so to speak. And then we're out of the picture, hopefully by the end of that phase. But we work with we license adoptive families as well. We recruit for adoptive families. A lot of times children who are in foster care go on to be adopted by the same foster home. Not every foster parent has the goal to adopt. They want to temporarily care for a kid and then be able to care for the next one. But some families, their goal is to adopt if that's what the goal ends up being. And then kinship would be, in terms of children's services world, kinship is any family member, friend, acquaintance, somebody that the child is familiar with that they can be placed with. So it doesn't have to be a blood relative to be considered kinship in children's services world. In family services, for different services through them, through public assistance, they do have to be blood relatives or a custodian or guardian. So it's a little bit different in both worlds. But for us, that's what kinship consists of.
So kinship is like fostering, except you don't have to be qualified. You have to be related somehow. You don't have to go through a program to foster people. You just have to be related or?
Well, so to be a foster parent, you have to be a foster or adoptive parent. You have to go through training.
Right.
You have to go through pre-service training.
Mm-hmm.
You have to pass home inspections they're pretty stringent. So they look at your finances. They look at you. Do you have working smoke detectors? Do you have emergency exits? Do you have an exit plan? If you have a basement, do you have doors to go out or, because we can't, if there's not a way out of the basement, you can't have a child in the basement, making sure that there's not holes in the walls and, different safety factors. Also, we look at criminal histories. We do background checks, FBI and BCI checks. So they're very, very thorough with that. We do local court checks. We do children's services checks in our statewide system. If someone's lived out of state, we also have the means to request records from that state to see if there's any children's services involvement. We are also required to check the National Sex Offender Registry as part of that background check as well. So that is a requirement for foster and adoptive homes. For kinship, there are kinship home assessments as well, but they do not have the same requirements. So a lot of that stuff is waived for kinship families. So if it's if it's not a safety issue, a home study could be approved for a kinship provider because we don't want any barriers to be in place because you don't have the space and someone has to sleep on the couch. We don't want a child to go in foster care because you can't meet that requirement. In a foster home, you can't have a child sleeping on the couch. They require a bed, if that makes sense.
Yeah, the rules just look a little different between each program.
Okay.
It's been a huge shift in practice when you say
yes.
that, especially with Governor DeWine and a lot of his initiatives have been very child focused. Kinship supports didn't used to get the financial supports that they do now. So there's been a shift all the way at the state level to the local level at that focus so that we can keep kids out of care because we know the studies show that they do better with family.
Yeah.
And I can say that, right now we have 96 kids in our care, and 29 of them are in homes with kinship providers. We've also been able over the last 2 years to license relatives to adopt family members, which is a huge step in the right direction, in my opinion, for our practice, because 2 years ago, we didn't have any kids in our custody that were placed with kinship just because of the way the rules were set up and the system was designed. But now we can place with kinship instead of keeping kids longer in foster care and get them a family quicker.
You said you have over 90 kids right now.
96 currently. And since January, we've had a total of 137 children in care.
Did you say yesterday that that's like a lot more than you usually have?
Yes.
Which is why
Yes.
you need to pass the levy.
Partially, yes.
Okay.
And then our placement costs just go up, and the needs
Okay.
of the children that we're seeing are so much more intense than they used to be. A lot of kids with a lot of behavioral needs. We have a lot of children I wouldn't say a lot. We have several children in our care who have found to be delinquent through juvenile court because of their behaviors or unruly. A lot of times they can't go home because no one can manage their behaviors. And sometimes we're the last stop because we're the only people who can help place that kid somewhere where they'll hopefully get help, because like jail's not appropriate and they're not doing well in the home. So, but,
We don't get to say, here's
Right.
your waiting list.
right.
Get in
But we're
line and
cool.
we'll service you.
Yeah.
It's if you have a need and we're supposed to meet and we have to serve the child.
Yeah.
Family.
Yeah. So, but 96 is definitely the most since I've been employed working for children's services here that we've had in care.
And you mentioned some of the cause of that is the like mental or drug issues in our community, or no? Is that-
Right. The majority of the children in care the main reason is actually neglect, which can encompass parental drug use, which is the primary reason
Okay.
that's the majority of our cases. We also have a lot of cases where there are mental health issues identified where it's not safe to leave children in homes and parents need to get stabilized before they can properly care for their kids. We also have cases of physical abuse, sexual abuse, but those are the primary reasons. Inadequate housing has been also identified as a reason.
And it's not a Clinton County thing. This is
No.
a trend that you're seeing all across the state as far as increase in placement costs,
Mhm.
increase in kids coming into care, and increase in the types of needs that they have that need to be met.
That's a good point to make. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did we discuss independent living that we just discussed for foster care and stuff, and then adult protective services?
Mhm. So independent living is for the children in our custody that are ages 14 to, it could be up to 21. That's where we identify a plan with them. We go through a life skills assessment with them, identify what do you need to succeed in life? What do you need to successfully go into adulthood? Budgeting, educational needs, even working with them on hygiene. We provide different supports for our independent living kids. And again, it's just the kids in our custody. We try to hook them up with OhioMeansJobs because they also have programs for youth, which we can talk a little bit about when we get there. But
Were there kids who are 14 years old living on their own?
no. Their goal, they are required to have an independent living plan.
Okay.
So they're in a foster home, they're in a group home or a residential center or with kinship. And then we do a plan with them. So every month we're going out, at least every month, and talking to them about, so what are let's talk about budgeting. Let's talk about your grades. Let's talk about, all these things that you would to make sure that when they become an adult, they know somewhat what they're doing.
So you're preparing them to be independent.
Yep.
Okay, gotcha.
Is there an emancipation minimum age for the state of Ohio?
18. I think kids could file privately, but that doesn't
go through you guys.
Typically 18, but we can service
Yeah.
them up to age 21.
Yeah, if there's if they're still in high school, we can service them up until they graduate or until they're 21 if they have developmental disabilities.
And you hear a lot when people talk about like foster care and stuff that Ohio is a reuniting state. Is that true?
That is typically always the goal if that's safe in the best interest of the child. But yes, we work very hard to put those services in place for families and give our jobs to eliminate barriers. So we try to help them do that the best that we can.
Yes.
And what does adult protective services mean?
So basically that's very similar to child protection services, except for you have to be 16 and older. So we will get calls about that with population 16 and older if there's concerns of abuse, neglect, exploitation. We get a lot of calls from banks about concerns with people exploiting people that they work with in terms of their finances. But again, just abuse and neglect, sometimes caregivers.
Are you saying banks call about their other employees exploiting?
Oh, no. So if they have concerns about someone coming in to withdraw money.
Okay.
With the person.
Oh, okay. I see.
Yeah. Law enforcement also gets involved with that. That's really more of a law enforcement issue, but it is something that we work with them on because that is a form of.
That's good that you guys have that. Yeah. Because that's a huge issue for sure.
Yeah. So, and that's a program that we're really trying to expand on.
So it's preventative for elder abuse.
Yes, preventative. And it's a little different in that you could go to someone's door, and we even have self-neglect cases, and they can just say, I don't want your help. And you can't make somebody work with you, but we try to get different services in. So like with the Elderly Services Board, they have a lot of different services in place that they can offer.
So if they need, we can pay for like home cleaning services and those types of things.
Yeah.
So if they're willing and able, so if they're of sound mind, if they're able to do decision making for themselves, they do still have a say as an adult on how much they want to work with us.
Right. And we help make sure that they have home health set up. And, we've had cases before where home health isn't coming in as regularly as they're supposed to, and just various situations. But and we work a lot of, we do what's called an I-team. And that is including law enforcement, us, and various organizations around the community. So
the hospital,
health department.
And the second piece of children's services, you have child protection, you have child support unit.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just touch on that briefly? I'm sure it's pretty cut and dry. It seems like.
Since that's the world you're from.
Okay, sure.
So a lot of people confuse children's services with child support. So child support has a monetary tie to it. They're the unit responsible for ensuring children get the support from their parents that they're entitled to receive. So what we look at first is we establish parentage. That can include locating non-custodial parents. We call them custodial, non-custodial parents, just kind of our verbiage. So you have to establish parentage, and then we actually facilitate establishing child and medical support orders. So that's a monetary amount that's being exchanged between the families to support the child. When we talked yesterday, we talked about there kind of being 3 avenues that we receive orders. We establish them. We have an administrative process to establish them. And then we also receive court orders for child and medical support through juvenile court and through domestic relations court. Once we receive those orders or it's been established, we're responsible for doing all the enforcement. So enforcement is a strong word, and I don't necessarily like to use it. But at the end of the day, the goal of this agency is to ensure that kids are getting support that they're entitled to. So that could be working with non-custodial parents on how do we get payments and coming from you if you're not employed. What other services do we need to refer you to? It could be something simple as issuing an income withholding order to an employer to collect on a weekly, biweekly, or monthly basis support for the child. So all the enforcement pieces we're responsible for. And then as far as the collection and the disbursement goes, we have a state disbursement unit. So at the federal level, they changed the requirement. We used to actually cut checks like way back in the day to every family who was going to get child support. Now we have a central location that processes all those. They do all the collection of the money, and then they disperse it right back out to the families. The other thing we do in child support is we actually work with intergovernmental cases. So if we have families that move, we work with other states to ensure that that support's still being collected and dispersed to the child. Last year, just to kind of give you a stat, we collected over $5 million for families and dispersed those out to make sure kids got the support that they're entitled to receive. They work very closely with the prosecutor's office. We have an assigned prosecutor out there, also with the courts as well, to be able to do this job to ensure kiddos are getting support.
And is that just to the age of 18?
So in Ohio, emancipation is 18 and graduated from high school, whatever happens later. So we do have some children that we emancipate at 19 because they're still enrolled full-time in high school.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Scenario-wise.
Okay.
So we have a homeless problem in Wilmington.
Yes.
And some of those people have kids.
Yeah.
And I'm sure some of them are not together with their spouse or whatever. So that kid would, I guess, technically be entitled to some support,
Yes.
but the parent might not have a job to pay them. What would you do in that situation?
So the first thing we want to do is figure out why they don't have the job.
Mm-hmm.
What are the barriers? Obviously, homelessness is a huge barrier. And then what other resources can we refer you to get you out of that situation? Is it family services because you need some public assistance help? Is it OhioMeansJobs because you need some employment help? We work, again, close with OhioMeansJobs and make referrals over there all the time for people who need employment. There are, if those things that aren't working or they don't want to work with us, then we can take other measures like license suspension, court enforcement to get those payments. But when you're homeless and you don't have a job, it's very hard to get those.
Does it just go into like back pay child support then?
It just accrues as an arrearage. There's no statute of limitations on child support collection. So you can be pursued if you're not able to stay current or make those payments. And there's other avenues that we're able to collect some back support. Tax offset is one way, lump sums. So if you work for an employer and you're going to get a bonus and you're behind, we also offset lottery and gambling earnings. So if you go into the casino and you win a big pot of money and they go to run your information and they see that you have a child support arrearage that's owed, that will be offset for that arrearage as well. A whole gamut of enforcement tools. But the number one thing that the caseworkers do is what can we do to help eliminate these barriers? What needs to happen for you to get a payment? And maybe you can't pay the whole month. What can you do to get something in here? And where can we refer you to get services so that you are able to pay your support?
So I assume that this unit is not the unit that's helping the kids directly. That would be the child protection. This is the group that's pursuing the parents to get
totally different. They're their own little unit.
For sure.
Yeah.
So a family has like a profoundly disabled child that, has the mental age of a child their whole life.
Yeah.
Are they eligible to collect child support until the death of that disabled child, or is it just until they hit that graduation?
Administratively, it's just at emancipation, whatever the emancipation is. But there are cases with disabled children where it's been ordered through a court order that support continue through that child's lifetime. But it does have to be a court order for us to enforce it past our normal statute for emancipation. And we have some of those cases.
Yeah, I could ask a bunch of weird questions, but weird situations. All right. So let's finish up with OhioMeansJobs.
Okay. So OhioMeansJobs, they are under the Office of Workforce Development, which is also under ODJFS. They provide services not only to individuals looking for employment, but they also work with all of our local area employers. So the services that are available at OhioMeansJobs are free to anybody who comes in there. They just have to register for the services, and then they're eligible to take a look at anything that's on the job board. They're able to utilize the internet and computer systems to apply for jobs, to get onto OhioMeansJobs, kind of build a career backpack, take different trainings, build a resume, maybe practice some of their interview skills. And then occasionally you actually have employers come on site that do some open interviews for people who just want to stop in that day that are looking for employment. They have some more intense services. So their funding stream is a couple ways. So they're under WIO, which is the Workforce Investment and Opportunity Act. It's a federal funding stream that allows them to provide more intense services to some clients. So adults who are low income, who meet all the eligibility requirements, could get some additional one-on-one support in making them marketable for jobs, for working on soft skills, for buying, maybe they need work supports, gas supports, those types of things. So that would be like your staff assisted services. They also service dislocated workers. So anytime we've had companies in the community that maybe have a mass layoff or will be closing their doors, we go in there and start providing services to them. Sometimes that can look like just, hey, updating your resume, showing you what jobs are available, helping you apply for jobs. And sometimes it can look like skills upgrades. So maybe your industry is going away and we need to upgrade your skills, or we need to train you in a different industry so that we can get you back to work. They also work with unemployment claimants. I definitely want to make sure this is on there. Unemployment is not done at the local level. We do not have an unemployment office in Clinton County. Unemployment is facilitated at the state level. They do all of it. But we can work with individuals who are receiving unemployment to help them get back to work faster, providing some of those supports and services to help them get back to work faster. We talked a little bit yesterday that we also work with local employers. So assistance in identifying skilled workers. So maybe we go into OhioMeansJobs and we're looking for people with resumes that meet the qualifications that they're looking for just by posting positions. So a business could call up and say, hey, I need to hire these many positions. Can you post it in your office? We'll do that as well. Then we also help with on-the-job training. So maybe we're working with a client and the employer's not quite sure if they want to take them on full. We could do on-the-job training where there's a financial support or incentive to the employer to work with that employee, kind of have like a trial period of working with them before they hire them on.
I was laughing because can you put Emily on that program for me?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I'm going to keep her another year. No.
We'll get you some skill upgrades.
For dealing with hostile bosses.
And then just updating workforce skills in general. So if you have like a company and let's say there's maybe some new technologies coming along and you want some of your employees to be skills upgrades to be able to do that. So you're still marketable. So you're still employable. We can provide those types of services as well. And then we also have the comprehensive case management and an employment program. You couldn't tell ODJFS likes all the acronyms and the little words.
Yeah.
That's our youth program. So anybody 14 to 26, I might have said that wrong, 24 can utilize those services. Or are you just outside that age range?
I'm about to turn 26.
Okay.
Dang it.
Yeah. So they can come in and get some intense services. A lot of what that case manager does, and she does a really good job about that, is getting youth into work experiences. Maybe they're interested in a certain trade or a certain career path, and she works with local employers to do those work experiences and then perhaps help supporting them by getting certifications or licensures or schooling or whatever they would need to be successful and enter that career field.
I think the OhioMeansJobs division unit was at the Clinton County Workforce Career Day, whatever.
They were. They had their virtual
they had a VR. Yeah. That was really cool.
Yeah. So they let you.
Put that hat on.
Did you try them out?
Yeah, it was neat.
Neat. So Amanda was telling me you can like change oil and change tires and do all kinds of things. I had seen some of the pictures from that. What a great tool to introduce kids to, hey, this is exactly what, this is a tangible way to see what's going to be expected of you in this job field.
With your services offered like mass layoffs, like you were talking about, is that proactive or retroactive?
Proactive.
That's nice.
So a lot of your big organizations will follow like, they're called like warn notices where they're giving warning that we'll be doing this layoff. But as soon as we know it's happening, and I will say the other thing about OhioMeansJobs and the staff that are in there, they already have very good positive relationships built with businesses all over the county. So they will reach out to them if something's going to be happening and they want to. I think most businesses, when they get to a point where maybe they need to close or they're moving or what have you, they really do care about servicing their employees. So they want to get help in there so that they're not leaving them just high and dry. So they're very proactive about reaching out and saying, hey, this is what's going to be happening. And we'll go out and meet with the employees and talk to them about the services that are available to them.
Was OhioMeansJobs involved with the DHL situation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So back then it was probably still CC Works because I was still working there. So there were lots of national emergency grant money that was funneled down through the federal government. So we were very involved in meeting individually with the displaced workers and determining what their next kind of course of action would be, whether it be training them for a new career path or just other supports and services. They were involved the whole way through that process.
Could training look like paying for like schooling for them?
Yes.
Okay. I think we talked to some people that happened for.
Yeah. So we've done things like, state nurse trainings. We've done nursing.
Yeah, that's
we've done
awesome.
LPNs, machine operators, public accounting. There's a process that goes involved. Like you have to show different things like, number one, can you financially afford to attend school? Is this the career that's appropriate for you? Do you know what entails it?
When you first were telling me about this program yesterday and how you go into businesses and help train their employees, I was thinking why doesn't the business do that themselves? But I can see it being a public safety concern of if you have all these workers who are just unemployed, the community doesn't want that. So proactively you're helping that situation not happen.
So we talked about sometimes doing skills upgrades. Hey, can you come in and train our entire staff? Number one, the money's available and we want to put it into local businesses. So it keeps their their staff trained and up to par. But then when you have a situation like DHL, you still have people that are skilled to get other jobs that they can stay in the community. They don't actually have to leave the community. So there's lots of different avenues when you're doing that process. That makes sense.
Yeah. So you're empowering them, basically.
Empowering.
Yikes. Right on. That was a lot. That was a lot.
Yes.
Have we discussed it all?
Probably not. But
We could talk for hours. I think what people should know is that we are there to help people when they hit some really bad circumstances in their life. Our goal is to help people at the end of the day. We don't want to see people in bad situations. We don't want to see families suffering. We don't want to see children suffering. And at the end of the day, that is our job. There are lots of wonderful community organizations here in Clinton County. I'm sure you guys have talked to many of them that we partner with along with that to make sure that our community is successful in assisting those people. It's definitely not a job you can do on your own.
Well, thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Amanda.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
it.
thank you.
Well, that's it for our podcast today, folks. If you have any more questions for Nicole or Amanda, feel free to reach out to them directly. You can stop in the Clinton County Job and Family Service Building or give them a call. If anyone wants to get in touch with Real Change Wilmington, how would they do that, Emily?
You can find us online. We have a website, and there's a form on there if you want to reach out to us directly. But we also have social media, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, where we post all of our shenanigans. Or you can shoot us an email or come and see us in town.
Yep. We also have a paper coming out soon, so stay tuned for that. Until next time, I'm your host, Dustin Pierce.
And I'm Emily Griffith, the co-host.
Keep it real, Wilmington.